Hello everyone. How's it? Aloha, ni hao, annyeonghaseyo, konnichiwa. My name is Otto, and I wanted to share with you guys my testimony of how God brought me here to Hawaii. My dad migrated in 1980s from Peru. He used to be a merchant marine. He used to sell fish all over the world. And his boat got to New York in the United States, and his ship stopped there in New York, and he didn't go back to his ship as he was supposed to. So he lived illegally for a couple years in New York. After that, a couple years passed, and he helped me, my mother, and my older brother come through land, through Mexico. We had Mexican papers, we had Mexican IDs, everything. By this time, around 1986, the government offered an amnesty, and what that did was the amnesty, it pardoned anyone up to 1986 that had come to the United States, was given legal residence. So my father, through that, took the opportunity, and he became a resident. I got a little bit sick while I was living there in New York from eating soap, eating paint, drinking shampoo. I don't know why I had this desire for those things. Maybe something was missing in my system at that age. And after just a couple months, by the grace of God, I became better. I went through the hospital, and they treated me, and they cleaned out my blood. So after that happened, my parents got a little bit scared, and they decided to send me and my older brother back to Peru. My dad and mom stayed, and they sent us to live with my aunts so they can take care of us. And then my mother came back afterwards, because my mom stayed with my dad just so they can make enough money. But after my dad seeing how we needed our parents to take care of us, my mom ended up coming. My dad told her that he's gonna stay there, save up some money. And by that time, my dad had to petition me, my mom, and my older brother so we can come back to the United States legally this time. So in 1996, me, my older brother, my mother, and now my younger brother, we all came through plane. I was around 10 years old, turning 11. So we came back to New York. Living in New York, I got to see just the rough lifestyle that there is there. And my mother started looking for us to go to school, but as she tried to put my older brother in high school, she ran across the fact that there was a lot of gang violence around Queens or Bronx or Brooklyn. There was metal detectors in the front entrance to the school. When she saw this, she got scared, and she told my brother that he couldn't go to school for that year until they find something better. So I went to school. I took on some bilingual program. By this time, parents were already Christians around the early 1990s. Through the church that they were assisting, they had met some brothers and sisters from church of Lorain, Ohio. So this way, my dad, he went about 2 times, I believe, to Lorain, Ohio, and got to know how Ohio was. Him and my mother got to see that it was a very good place. At that time, it was a very quiet place, full of retired people. There wasn't much, worrying about anyone stealing anything or anyone getting mugged or getting jumped or fights or guns and violence and drugs. There wasn't none of that around that time. And so around 1997, my parents decided we're gonna go to Ohio. We go move over there, and there was rarely any Spanish influences. I had to, talk in English with the young kids if I wanted to make friends. Also, through entertainment, watching Sesame Street or Barney, that's how my English kind of developed. Through communicating socially, I was able to practice my English even more. Growing up at home, there was a lot of Christian influence, and I've always heard many things about God and just how one should live. They would take me to church. Many times I would kick and fuss because I felt that I was being obligated to go. So at around the age of 16, being now a teenager, now starting being like in my second year of high school. There was so much peer pressure in high school, seeing the lifestyles that people lived in high school, and then just seeing what there was being told to me and taught to me at home of what I should believe and how I should live my life. And going to church and hearing everything that was being preached, all of this was making me a little bit confused. I didn't know what to choose, what to really believe. At the age of 16, I made my choice to stop going to church. Well, around this time, I started doing school, and I was already not doing so good in high school. And I had been already for 3 years already a junior in high school. After 9th grade, I would just take my gaming magazines of Xbox or Game Informers or Electronic Game Monthly or Game Pro, you name it, Play, official Xbox magazine. I had all these magazines, and I would take them with me around that time to school, and I would read them. I was always involved in the new technology. What's the new computer, new chips, new controllers, new games that was coming out. I was always apt and informed about everything, because that's all I was doing. I wasn't paying attention in school. I was just very entertained in my life. That's what I put my focus on. But I've always had influence or whatnot into video games. Even when I was in Peru, going to play Nintendo, Super Nintendo. But around the age of 17, I get told by school that I need to consider staying in school more years, because through your report card you have only made it all the way to 11th grade, but because you don't have enough credit to graduate, you can't graduate until you reach 21 credits. And at that time, the exact time, I had only 4.5 credits, and therefore I only had enough points that had helped me pass 9th grade. But because in high school they just push you along until you get to the end, and once you get to the end, you're stuck there until you complete all your credits. So I was at the age of 17, I finally have found my job. I started working in Taco Bell. I thought I'd make my own money, buy my own games, and I was working night shift from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. and I was also going to school from 8 a.m. to about 3 or 4 p.m. Therefore, I tried school. When I started working, I tried school for 2 weeks, and then they were giving me this option, telling me about because I wasn't gonna graduate in time, if I wanted to graduate, I had to stay 3 more years in high school, or I could choose to do the GED route. And through the GED route, I just take a general test, a basic knowledge test, and if I pass this test, I'll get a certificate that is not the same as a diploma, but is good enough at least. I decided to take the GED route because I thought if I stayed in high school, I would have to be there for about 3 more years. I will be like the oldest person in school. So I decided to drop out, and I pursued to try to get my GED. Around the age of 18 now, after a year not going to school and still trying to pursue my GED, but not as so focused. I was still playing video games, and at the age of 18 I started playing online gaming through Xbox Live, and it's just I got way much more immersed. I would go to work and just come home and play my games, maybe go once a week to try to study for my GED. Then I was told about a program through the government that was called Job Corps, and I also attended that. For anyone who doesn't know about Job Corps offers you to get your GED, and also you can study some trades. But the truth about Job Corps is that it's the ghetto, which is the street lifestyle, in a world where an atmosphere of street lifestyle and army rules and education in a pot. So I went through that 4 months. I couldn't get my GED, and I decided just to back off from it. After just trying that, didn't focus on my GED as much. I got more involved into video games. I started playing more hours. Halo 2 came out. I remember I spent about 36 hours maybe just playing nothing but games straight through. In the release date of this game, I would spend about 8 to 12 hours a day. I used to live in the third floor in the attic of my parents, and I would grab my dish of food and I would bring it with me downstairs, like stock up on some food, rice and then or crackers, and then my big jar of Kool-Aid. And I would do this and then take it upstairs, and I would stay upstairs for the rest of the day. I started, just to entertain my life a lot, not caring about, all these things with a religion or even, my real life, which was, a high school dropout. All I had was just work. And just to not care about anything, I immersed myself in the gaming world. And there I didn't have to worry about anyone or nothing. Growing up in my house, it was always very challenging for me. I didn't have much of a good relationship with my dad, and he always, he was very straightforward. If there was something that he didn't like, he would tell you, and if it wasn't his way, then there was no other way. At times when I did wrong things growing up, I would always get spankings. I would get hit with a paddle or hit with a belt, and there was always kind of this sense of fear towards my dad that I never gave me the opportunity really to have a good relationship with him. One thing that I always respected him, even in those days, about him was that he was very responsible. He worked for us. He always put food on our table, and we always had shelter. So around the age of 20, $20 ended up missing in my house. And at that time, my friend was living with us, and my father started questioning me. He started questioning my younger brother, and even questioned my mother when we got home about where is his money, if we had took it or not. And so when my older brother comes home that night, he asks my brother, where's this money? Did you take it? And my dad, by this point, he was already on fire, exploding. And so my older brother just tells him, hey, just relax. He'll show up eventually. Don't worry about it. There's no need to get all fired up about something like that. It's just $20. But when my dad heard this, I really got him just up to his limit. And my brother just started heading upstairs to go to his room. And my dad, he took out his belt and started chasing my brother up the steps. When I saw this, I just couldn't take it anymore. I had seen my dad, beat me, beat my younger brother. And at times, when my mother would see us, get into trouble or get punished by my dad, she would throw herself in front of us, and she would also get beaten. And that was one of the things that stopped me from having a good relationship with my dad, because I didn't think he had a heart. And when I saw this, that he was gonna do this again to my brother, now that we were already older, I said, I can't have this anymore. I won't allow this to happen. So I go and chase my dad down. My dad's going up the steps. I grab my dad from the back of his shirt as he's going up the step, and I pull him down, and then he falls back down the steps, and he lands on his back with his hands and his feet in the air. And as I rush downstairs towards him and just kick him a couple of times in his chest, and I run to the kitchen to grab a knife, a big cooking knife. And so as I'm there in the kitchen trying to grab the knife, my mother sees me and she's like, "What are you trying to do? Where are you going with this? What are you doing?" And I tell her, "I just can't take it anymore." She says, "No, don't do anything." She says, just go outside to my car and stay and wait there. At the same time, my youngest brother, he was very hysterical. Tears were on his eyes. He was around 10 years old, and he was just so upset. He was screaming and saying, I don't know what's going on. What's wrong with this family? I'm going to call the cops." And my younger brother just calls the cops. Meantime, when I'm in the car, I start looking out the window. First, I see that my dad gets out and he leaves in his truck. And then a couple minutes later, the cops come. My mom told him that everything's well and fine. But once this situation happened, my mother told me and my younger brother, she said, guys, we're gonna leave home for now. Your dad doesn't understand what you guys are going through at your age. So because of this, we're gonna go live with uncle for a little bit, and then we'll see what happens. So my older brother stayed with my dad, me, my younger brother, and my mom, and we went out to live with my uncle for a couple of months. After that, found a place to live, just the three of us in the projects. My brother, he stayed with my dad, so he kind of wanted to keep the communication between my parents. He always had a sincere, full heart for the family. My brother, around 2007, was already attending college. He found out about the Disney internship program. He applied through the Lorraine County Community College, and he got accepted by God's grace and mercy. And so he was already gonna set off to leave to Florida that February. And so before he left, he told us, his family, that he wanted to go, but he wanted to make sure that we were united. So he urged my mom and dad and me and my younger brother, to sit on the table and talk things out, and perhaps we can go back to live with dad. So my dad, he told us, guys, I want you to come back home and live with me. You have been away for a couple years. So when we were on the table, I told my dad, I said, Dad, I don't want to go live with you, but I will if my mom wants, and if it's for the best, I will do it, as long as you promise never ever to touch anyone. If you ever touch my brother or my mom, I'm gonna kill you. And he said, don't worry about it, I won't lay a finger on nobody, just come home. So we all decided that it'll be okay, it'll be for the best, and we went back home to live with dad. My older brother, he went down to Florida. And so, around when I turned 21, I was working in KFC around that year, and I just had got the job. I spent a couple months there. At the same time, I was just still playing video games through Xbox Live. I had met a girl from Arkansas, and I was basically dating her through online. And at this time, I started working as a cook in KFC, and through there I started getting to know the people. I started just wanting intimate contact or lusting over a certain girl there at work. And I started giving the girl rides, to her house after work. And one night, as I'm taking her home, things got out of hand and carried away. After leaving her, her house, I felt very bad, and I had felt like I had cheated the girl that I was with, who was living in Arkansas, I met through the internet. I felt super bad. I felt such a pain in my heart, so much guilt, and I felt like I had committed sin. I felt very heavily and just burdened in my heart, so bad that after I left the girl home, I was just crying. I just couldn't believe what had happened, what my actions had led me to do. And I was just crying. I couldn't stop crying. When I get home that night, my mom sees me and she tells me, what's going on? What's wrong with you? Are you okay? And I tell her, Mom, I don't know how to explain it, but I've committed a sin. I feel so bad, and I all I know, Mom, is just I have to repent for this. And so I ran up to my room. I knelt down. I started just talking to God, and I just said, God, I've heard a lot about you. I've heard that you can bring peace to someone's heart, and that you can, take pain away from people. I heard so much about you, and I want you to please, I repent from what I've done. I'm sorry for what I just did, and I want you to take this pain away. I can't stand it anymore. It's bothering me. I want you to please take it away. Right there in that moment, I repented before God for what I had did. Then I started going to church. I started just seeking more about God and wanting to know what was the will of God. And let me read this to you. It's my testimony from that time. It says that same year, after I gave my life to God, I went to youth camp and I wrote this testimony. And this is what it says. It says, God bless you, my beloved brothers and sisters. I would like to share my testimony with you for the glory of the Lord Jesus Christ. About 6 years ago, I strayed from the ways of the Lord. I was about 16 years old at the time, and there was a lot of things going on in my life at home. I didn't see eye to eye with my father because of the way he was. So after a while, I would get bitter because of the orders he would give me. So as time passed by, it really hit me. I felt like my father didn't love me, and so I started to hate him for all the mistakes he made with me and my family. After this happened, I started to look for this love I didn't receive from my father out there in the world. As a young boy, I never wanted to be a two-face. There was something inside me hated that. So when I stopped going to church and serving the Lord, I prayed and told God, Lord, I am sorry, but the thing I'm looking for, I can't seem to find it here, and I don't want to be a hypocrite. So for about 6 years, I was lost in the world, and I found myself trying to fill that hole in my heart that needed love with entertainment of this world and women. So the feeling got so strong that I felt like I needed to love or be loved. To about this year, on March, a month after me, my family, and my father reconciled and became a family once more, I came to a point where I felt so sick of what had become of my life, and I had to make a choice. Then, as I was on my way back from work one day, I felt something squeeze my heart. It felt like someone was pulling my heart out from inside me, and the only thing I could do was cry out to the Lord and say, "Oh Lord, what have I done? I am so sorry. Please forgive me." And I just kept repeating that. As I was in tears and driving home, at the same time, when I got home, I ran to my room and knelt down on my bed and repented. As I was praying, a gentle, sweet voice spoke to my heart and said, "My child, the love that you have been looking for, it is I, and I have been with you since the beginning. So my dear brothers and sisters, I only stand here because of the love and grace of God. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you, and may you have a good night." This was my testimony. I gave my life to God in 2007, and this is what I looked like. I have more pictures of it here on Facebook. Just search for my album that says Pictures of Me, and you'll see all my pictures through my different years of the things that I experienced. So that year, following the walks, in the walks of the Lord Jesus Christ and going to church. Now when God works in you, He makes you're a new creature, and therefore you do new things are done. And therefore you don't do the things of the past, because that was the old you. And as I heard different preachings and sermons about this, I started wanting to make those changes, and I decided I cut my hair before I got baptized. And as I wanted to do things correctly in God's sight, so as I go to church, I started wanting to leave my old life. Literally, I had pornography books and gaming books and all this entertainment stuff about movies, game, music. I stopped listening to the music that I used to. I broke and just threw away all my CDs that I had. I sold some of them too, and I just sold all my gaming consoles. I burned and threw away my porno magazines and my gaming magazines and just all this stuff. Just got rid of all of it. You know, as I kept doing it, just trying to claim my life. Every time I would do that, it kind of hurted me. It was painful to let go of those things. So I went about a year of believing and walking and believing in the Lord Jesus Christ and in this Christian life. I began to walk in it. I had so much questions, and I would ask, you know, what about this? What about that? And this one person would tell me this thing, and this other person would tell me this other thing. I didn't know who to believe, what to believe. I started to look at people's mistakes and their errors and failures, and I started to point the finger at every individual. Also having the testimony of my dad being home, that also kind of affected me. I started looking at his walks and started, you know, just looking at the closest person beside me and just pinpointed at all the wrongs. And so that didn't help much. And after a couple of weeks of one thing that my pastor, when I asked him, told me, he said, all you do, brother, is you just pray and just walk how God is leading you and just pray about everything. But I started, you know, hearing different things and kept asking until, you know, I just said, you know, forget it. This is too confusing. This is too much. I'm not going to even deal with it. And so I decided just to put everything on pause and just not deal with it. So I backed out from church. Now, the one thing, when I did give my life to God, the pain that I had and that I was hurting, it brought peace to me. But the one thing that I didn't really expect for it to do is that it took all the pain and all the scars I had over the years from the damage that my dad had made on my life, of how he treated us and raised us while we were living with him now here in the United States. And so when God took that away, all those scars, I was for the first time able to sit with my dad and to talk to him as a regular person. Before I couldn't, especially after the whole conflict happened with me wanting to kill him and take this knife out towards him and threw him down the stairs. I couldn't. I did every time someone would mention of him, I would leave the room if I saw him. Plenty times after that happened, my dad he would kneel down before me and he would say, son, forgive me. And I couldn't forgive him. I said, Dad, you're a hypocrite. I can't believe you. You go 1 week, you say you're okay, and then you go to church, and then you come out of church, and then you're here beating us up. I can't believe you. I can never accept your apology. But when God took those scars away from my heart, I was able to finally sit down with my dad, look at him eye to eye, you know, shake his hand, hug him. And when I, you know, and that happened. Even that same year I gave my life to God, I got my GED. And coincidentally, it was 4 years later after I was supposed to graduate. So, but, you know, after I left church, after that whole year of being, then, you know, after serving God and then coming to this point of being confused or whatnot, I left church. I got back even worse into my video game phase. I started to buy my games again all over, listening to music, watching the movies that I used to. I just went back even worse than what I was. Once again, I wouldn't see my family only once a day, maybe when I stocked up on my food. And even I wouldn't even see my childhood friends. They would sometimes come and see me. I was playing online games. I wouldn't even give them the time or any attention. So 2 years later passed by, and around the age of 23, I decided, through watching a movie called Fish Read. In this movie, you see this young man who also wanted to do something for himself, something different. And he goes and starts doing like documentaries of his town, and then makes a big movie out of it. And then he presents it to his town, and through that he gets the desire of wanting to be a film director. And once he does that, it really changes life from him making that choice and having that choice to do something that he wanted to do. And so when I saw that, I felt a little inspired, and I said to myself, well, if he can do it, the young man in the movie, he was 23 and I was 23. So I said, well, I can do the same thing. I can I'll decide to play video games for the rest of my life. And that's it. That's the end of it. I don't care what anyone has to say about it. I don't care what who says about it. And what I didn't consider is that I was living at my parents' attic, and I was running all the electricity. They were paying for all the bills, and I was even, eating the food that they made and they were buying. So I made this decision, and when I made this decision, the one person that stood against me was my dad. Now, mind you, my dad, he lived a very social life. He had many friends. He drank also. He used to smoke. He used to be a drunkard when he didn't know God. Once he started walking in God, he left all those things as, his past life. And so I made a decision, and my dad stood against me. And the one thing that my father told me, he said, Otto, when you gave your life to God, we saw the big change. Your resemblance even was brighter. You were more friendly, more sociable. You would talk to people. You got to know the brothers and sisters in church. But now that you've left God and you've left the church and the gathering and the fellowship, you seem more sad. You seem more upset, more bitter, and you don't care about anyone. You just sit here all day and you just don't do anything but sit there and talk to people from around the world, and you're just sitting in front of a screen all day. Just, can you see the changes? Can you see how much damage this whole game stuff is doing to you? He said, I will not allow you to do that because I love you and you're my son. And so what my dad did after he talked to me that day, he grabbed a fuse box where you have all the electrical fuses or whatnot, and he turned off all the electricity to the attic to the third floor, the attic of the house. So once he did that, and during the first weeks, I would go downstairs, and when he was off work, I would try to turn it back on and try to time myself to go back down to turn it back off whenever he was home. But mind you, this was the first week. At the same time, my mother, when she saw this, she came upstairs to stay with me. And she had her own little bed, and she stayed there just to kind of keep the peace between my dad because of past confrontations. She didn't want us to get, physical or anything violent. So she stayed there and made the peace between, just to keep peace between me and my dad. And this, kept going. After a week, I just, my dad ended up making a lock for the fuse box, and I couldn't get in it no more. So I stopped fighting him about it. And so after that week, I started seeing, in the second week now, I started seeing my mom. She starts, since she was staying up there with me, she starts buying battery light bulbs. She started buying candles, and just so she can either read her Bible there while she's up there, or maybe even just to use the restroom at night. She had to, buy all this stuff. And when I see that, I said, my mom doesn't have to suffer for my choices. I'm like, if I made this choice for my life, there's no reason why my mom has to suffer. This is not right. And so I go and talk to my mom. I say, Mom, this has to stop. I cannot keep living like this. In this house, I can't live like this anymore, she says. I tell her. So, and I tell her, Mom, it's either once again another childish choice, and I tell her, Mom, it's either I leave home or Dad leaves home, but I can't stay here living like this anymore. I can't take it. So after 2 weeks, I told her that, and because my brother wasn't, she tells me, Otto, don't make a move, don't do anything, any final decision, but what I want you to do is give me a day. I'm gonna call your brother in Florida and ask him to see if you can come and live with him. So I tell her, okay, I'll let you talk to him to see what he says. You let me know. So she talks to my brother, and my brother says, okay, you can come over and live with me. So my brother opened the doors. And so on April of 2009, I head over to Florida to go live with my brother. So I get to Florida, and I think my gaming console with me too. But because I live with my brother, I didn't want to disrespect him and disrespect the house that he was living in. He had his own bedroom or whatnot rented in a house. It wasn't I was watching more anime than anything while I was staying with him. And then he tells me, you know what, try to apply, because mind you, my brother was already in Florida and he was still working through Disney, but he had stayed there. So by this time it was already 2009. And so he tells me, brother, try to apply to Disney and maybe through my reference you can get a job in here. And so I told him, okay, I'll give it a try, I'll apply. So 2 weeks after I got in Florida, I got hired. I applied and I got hired in Disney World. In Disney World, there's a lot of students from the college program. There's also regular part-timers, full-timers, seasonals, and also international college program students from Asia, Europe, from all over the world, through colleges or whatnot. So there, I began my work in food and beverage, working in the food court, and I start meeting people from international people from Mexico, people from France, people from China, people from Korea, people from Japan. It's different people from all over the world, from Costa Rica, Honduras, you name it. There's any college that is connected with Disney that takes the students over there to do their internship. And I'm working, and I start meeting people of Asian culture. There, the first person that I met was a Japanese girl around her 20s, and I started just being impressed by her character, how her humility, and her how the way she expressed herself, and her care for other people, no matter what level or status they had at work, or what their age was, or whether it was men or women. So I just get impressed by it, even end up liking the girl. But being there, working there, I got to meet Chinese people from China, and they, mind you, I didn't know anything about Asian culture except for Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, anime, and some video games like Shenmue that was on the Dreamcast, or Street Fighter, or Mario, this here, or Pokemon. That's all I knew about things about Asia, just their entertainment things and actors or whatnot, or martial artists. So the Chinese people that I kept meeting and had my shifts with, they kept talking about how China is, and the difference between even the food in China and the food here that's called Chinese food in a Chinese restaurant. And they started just talking about how expressing to us, just the locals or whatnot, that how a homemade Chinese meal is the best thing in the world. Nothing compares to it, especially not the Chinese food you can get at any restaurant here in the United States. Because the Chinese food you get at a restaurant, the whole fried rice and lo mein, that's nothing compared to homemade Chinese food. So when I heard that I liked my Chinese food from the States here, that we get. And I'm like, wow, okay, that must be true. I said, well, I don't know. And I asked them, like, really? That sounds interesting. I would like to try one. And they said, oh, you want to judge? You want to try it, really? I told them, yeah, why not? And so they said, oh, well, okay, so we can have a dinner party then, and we'll cook for you. And like that, you can tell the difference. You can be the judge, and we'll make several plates, and you can come join us and taste it all. I said, okay, why not? I would like to do that. And so they invited me for a night to come around 7 p.m. And so, the day comes. It was July 7th. Earlier that day, around 10 a.m., I go out and I finally buy my car. I buy just a Kia Sophia for $19.99 for about $1,200 from a guy from Craigslist. And I go and buy it around 10 in the morning, and the guy tells me, he says, please don't drive the car until you get your own insurance, because the car is still under my wife's name. So I told him, okay, that's alright, that's fine, don't worry. I won't drive the car. It's no big deal. So, and then my mother even calls me and tells me, not to use the car and not to drive it. But later on that day, I get a phone call from the Chinese people from my work, my co-workers, that invited me for the dinner, that if I didn't mind, I could go and pick them up at their apartment, Disney apartment where they lived, and just take them to get groceries for the dinner tonight. So, kind of since they invited me, I felt a little obligated to do it. And so I said, okay, I'll take you guys, why not? And I didn't know the address or anything, so I asked them for the address, and I Googled it. I get lost for 1 hour to get to their apartment, and once I get there to their apartment, it starts pouring and raining, like really bad. And so I get there, and I pick up the girl. It was a girl from Korea, and then two girls from China, and they come along in my car, and it's pouring rain, and on top of that, this was on 535 in right there between Disney and Walmart in the Buena Vista area. And so I'm driving along, and there's heavy traffic, nothing but there's a lot of tourists there, so it's super heavy traffic. It's pouring really hard, and in one of those, it's like those clutter pushes or open holes or whatnot, that when people go forward and you gotta keep going forward but slowly because there's too much traffic, I push the gas and I brake, and when I brake, my car slips and hits the car in front of me. Oh man, as soon as that happened, I turned to see the girls that were with me to see if they were okay, and I saw that one of them, their head hit the front dashboard, and the other ones in the back just hit their head in front of the two front seats. And so I asked them, are you guys okay? Are you guys okay? And the first thing that they tell me as I turn to look to them, they say, Otto, are you okay? Is anything wrong with you? Are you feeling okay? We're sorry that this has happened to you. And I didn't know what to expect, because I wasn't expecting this from them. To me, this was my first impression, the first time I was meeting them outside of work, and this was the first impression that they had of me, and I almost took their life. I felt so bad. The feeling of almost taking someone's life is unexplainable, but very, very tormenting. So I told them, I'm fine, don't worry about me. Are you girls okay? They told me, we're okay, no worries. And so they were okay, and as soon as we get out of the car, and we had to push the car to the side to where the grass was in the middle, and I had to call my brother, and I call my brother, and he got out of working in an animal kingdom in a theme park there, and he goes and comes to the rescue. He tells me, Otto, grab my car and take the girls home, then come back. So as I'm taking the girls home, they tell me, Otto, don't worry about what just happened. if you still want to and you are able to, please come tonight that you can taste the dinner that we're gonna make for you. So I said, are you girls sure after what just happened? They said, yeah, just come, sure, why not, just come. And so, at first I was still shocked because the first thing that I would expect, because I lived in the States and I knew how maybe some people may react, and sometimes though you may know your coworker, but you don't fully get to know them as like a close friend or your siblings, but there's always the idea in the back of your mind that when an accident happens and others are involved that you don't really know, that you might get sued, a lawsuit or whatnot. So that's the first thing that I thought they were gonna do, but they did the complete opposite. So the girls tell me to come later on that night, and I told them, okay, I'll try to go. I gotta talk to my brother. And so I go back, and then my brother, he's there waiting for me, and I tell him, brother, I gotta ask you a big favor, and that is, please let me go to this dinner with my friends, because if I go home, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna be super depressed and tormented, and I just can't go home. He told me, okay, I'll don't worry, I'll take care of everything, and I'll drop you off at your friend's house. So that he did that, and he dropped me off at my friend's house at their apartment. And so ever since that day, that's kind of what set off my relationship with people of Asian culture. At times they would invite me to go out to eat dinner, and they started to serve me, especially that night when I ate with them. They grabbed my plate and they pour rice on my plate, and then they pour a little bit of each other, the 7 other dishes that they had cooked. They put it in my plate, and they were serving me my drink, and I was just appalled. I was just so shocked by it. I said, what's going on? And they just started telling me, this is how we treat one another. This is how it is in our country. And I started to see that it's more like brothers and sisters. And then later on, as I got to know them more and hang out with them, they took me out sometimes out to eat, and they would take me out to go get dinner. And whenever they would order a dish, they would serve me my plate, the best part of the dish. They would give me to me, and serve my drink, pour my drink also. So I was very shocked by all this that I was seeing. And the more I got to know them, the more I got to hang out with them. Thankfully that that we had the privilege to go to the Disney parks. That helped me to socialize with them even more, because we had the free entrance to all the parks, and we got to just go about all the parks, go to different Disney parks, and hang out together all the time. That it kept me outside from home, outside from playing my games, until I lost the desire to even play, or interest to even play in it. So I started to hang out with them more. My mother at that time even had a big Astro van, fit a lot of people, and everyone, like 10 people or 12 people. So I could take them all. I would go around. I wanted to take them around Florida in parts that they couldn't, in areas that they couldn't see the reality of how life is in Florida. Because they came in through the Disney World, they could only go on a certain bus or shuttles and go to either the malls or Walmart, or work in the theme parks. There was the only places that they can go to, 4 or 5 places they can go to. Or sometimes they would take them out to go clubbing or whatnot. But that was about it. And so I was like, they have to know different areas, and I started to take into them, and at the same time also socializing and getting to know them. And the more I got to know them, I started to want to get to know more about their culture, because what I began to see is that these kids were college students mostly, and they were coming all the way here. Some of them were of high life, meaning they lived a good life in their country. Some of them had maids. They were siblings to military people, and they just lived well. But they just came for the experience, for the so-called American experience, to live here. And as I started to getting to know them even more, I knew they would go out and party or drink, or some of them even smoke. And what started to hit me is just that they always kept high morals and high family values around them, and they knew how to respect each other, whether it was boy to girl, girl to boy. They always gave each other that respect. And as I got to know them even more, some of them knew that though they were here to have this experience and they enjoyed it, and they knew they had to go back home and finish their studies and take care of their family when they went back. So I started seeing in the high values, in the value system and the high morals, a similarity to like what it is in the foundation for religion beliefs or religious belief. And so I started seeing how there's a similarity to it. But I started wondering, how is it that these people that don't know nothing about God can even behave this way and consider to respect and appreciate their fellow beings, their fellow human beings, and their society, people in their social circle. How can they have such great balance and even know nothing about God? I began to wonder, and it was just a little marveled by it, because I hadn't seen it before in any place else but around Christianity belief that I was growing up on. So that gave me more of a drive to want to get to know them and spend time with them more. And as I got to spend time with them, as I started to work with them too, I started seeing really, my heart started being expressed out to them. And I started seeing how they were getting mistreated, how because they were Asians, they were put in cashier for like over 8 hours, and sometimes they were being overworked 2 or 3 shifts in a row. And just because they were college students, international especially, and they were put at the lowest like level of between the categories between full-time, part-time, seasonal, then national college students, and then international college students. So I started seeing just how they were being discriminated, how they were also just pushed even more, and just really being treated unfairly. Seeing that just hit me, because I wanted to help them as much. And it went up to one point where the managers where I worked, they stopped me from helping them ease their workload or whatnot. So as I went along getting to know them, and I started recognizing all this stuff, what they were going through at work, and how they lived their life outside of work, the values they shared, and the things that they knew and they were taught and being brought up by, I started to wonder if what they were showing to me was really something real, or it was just some phase they were putting up because they were away from home, away from anyone that didn't know them, and this is just how they treated other people away from their country. So I started to wonder, if it's really also the culture in itself that they come from that was making them act and have this values and characteristics and express those characteristics to me in that way, or it was really something that was brought up in them through growing up, their parents instill in them or taught them growing up at their house. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to nail it or whatnot. So I just became more interested to want to get to know their culture, and then just until I wanted to get to know their language. And that's how I started to become more interested in the Asian cultures. And so whenever my friends, because they were in this program, they would leave. I spent with the first group that I met, there was 2 months that I had met them, and we had made such a strong bond that we left just crying, and we made a bond, and we made a promise to each other that hopefully one day we can see one another. Many of them, when they left, they said, Otto, if you can, come to our country and we will give you a free tour around our country, and we even open our doors to our houses. You can come and stay with us for free, don't worry about it. And many of the times when they left, one of my friends who is Ji Hung, they told me, Otto, he tells me, Otto, and the other ones also, they tell me, Otto, before we met you, we wanted to leave because of how we were discriminated and being treated. But now that we have met you, we want to stay. We have spent the best times of our whole time being here with you, and we appreciate you, and we want you to come and visit us again to see one another again in our country. I told him, okay, I'll try my best to make it, and so we made that promise, and I just made such a strong bond with them. So just seeing the struggle that they were going through, it helped me recognize of all the corruption and all the just poor-hearted people that was out here in the American society, and how they treated one another, how there's so much mistrust, and and just the low quality of family values and morals, social morals, that I started to see that, and I was living at that time on Osceola County and around some ghetto close to the projects area around Boggy Creek, and also growing up, since I lived in the projects in Ohio, you just started seeing how the media can control a person's mind to just make them see life a certain way. How little kids were growing up with the idea of just to make quick money, and whatever they need to do, and even if they have to sell drugs or steal or kill for it, it doesn't really matter. Not everyone, but that was the fundamentals, and how the music industry and the movies, they were just showing kids that if you have the girl, if you have the car, if you have the house, or not even a house, but if you have the money and the shiny things, that you'll be okay. That's all life's about. And for a kid just to grow up to have the manager job in McDonald's, that's as high as they should go. That's all that they were aspiring. And I started seeing just how society, the media was in control of society's outlook of what life should be like, and how they were portraying or showing this lifestyle of how life should be lived. And ever since I was like 18 or even younger, I never believed that life was just about you're born, then you live, and you have children, and then you just die. That's all was being showed to these children, that's it. They were not helping them focus or push, emphasize on education for them to have a better future, to push themselves forward, to reach their full potential, and do anything or everything they could do for themselves, and to get out of that struggle that they were living under, or that oppression they were living under. They're just showing them to be okay and in comfort with what they were living around. That's all that I was seeing. And when I saw my friends, the people, those lives that I met, I said to myself, I don't want this lifestyle for my family. I don't want this mentality to be in my kids when they grow up, or as they grow up. I want them to push themselves to achieve all they can achieve, and reach their full potential. That's a way of living life. I know. And so I started to consider of wanting to go to Asia, because I had met this people's life that showed me there was something different. They weren't focused on that, on just the momentary thing. They had a goal in mind. They had their mind was set and focused on what they had to do, and what perhaps will come later to take care of those that take care of them. Very family oriented harmony. So as I see this, I said to myself, I want to go to Asia. I want to go to China. and see what life's about. Really know what the culture and life's about. I've had it with this. I can't take it no more. I said, I don't care. You can keep the houses, you can keep the car, you can keep all the freedom, but give me the values, give me the morals, give me the good ethics. Give me that. I'd rather have that. And so I just said it, finally just decided, made the choice to do it, also through certain things like heartbreaks that I went through that pushed me even more to want to really find out, see the reality of how life is there, to know what it's really like in Asia, to live there. And so around May of 2010, kind of made that decision and was working towards it. I had started working in Nickelodeon Suites and Resort in February. That the same year I quit Disney World due through I had a heartbreak, and I was feeling too emotionally distressed and just couldn't work in the same environment. So I left work, and then I lived by myself in my car for about 2 weeks. Just some situations that happened in my family that drove me outside of my house. And by this time, my mom was away, my brother was only there. So around June of 2010, I get the job in Nickelodeon Suites and Resorts. Being there, I got to meet a young man named Luis Nieves. And as me and him are getting to know one another through work, we start talking about, how I start just sharing at work, my experience in Disney and all the international people I had met, and how was, my experience with them and with the Asian culture. And he starts telling me how he would like to go to Hawaii. And he says, I tell him, Hawaii? Why Hawaii? He says, oh, Hawaii is beautiful. It's known as the paradise of the United States. And I told him, really? He says, yeah, Hawaii is super beautiful, clean, crystal clear waters, and beautiful women everywhere. I told him, oh, wow, well, I'll look into it. And so because I didn't want to disregard all the sacrifice my father and my mother had made, one, bringing us here to the United States, and two, just within growing us up and all the struggles that we all went through, I didn't want to disregard just the sacrifices that they had made. And so I considered, taking advantage of the opportunity that I had, which was the education side. And so I knew through my residency, being a resident, I can take advantage to go to school and get a degree or some way. And so I started to look about the schools, and just I applied to Florida State University 2 times. I got denied both times. Both times were because of my ACT score, which is general testing like the SAT. But that test, the ACT score is a little bit lower in privileges or whatnot. But so I took this ACT score and I only got scored like a 12, and you need at least a 28 or higher in points to be considered to go for any college acceptance. And also because I'm a high school dropout, I only have a GED, so I have a poor educational background, and that wasn't enough to push me over to get accepted into a big school like Florida State University. So because I got rejected 2 times, when my friend Lewis told me about Hawaii, I started to think, wanted to look for more information. So I got online, I looked in Wikipedia, and it told me after World War II, a lot of people from Japan and even the Philippines and China came to work here in the plantations. They were brought here, and and so I started seeing just the origins, that they had since World War II here in Hawaii, and I was like, whoa, man, this sounds interesting. It's a lot of Asian people over there. So And then I started looking, about the schools. I was like, wonder what their school, what they're offered what they offer as majors, or what kind of stuff they teach in school over there. Because as I said, I got rejected. Many of the community schools in Florida that I was looking into, they didn't have Japanese, Chinese, or Korean, which is either of the three languages that I wanted to start learning. But what they did have was Spanish or French or German, and I didn't want to learn any of those languages. But many of the community schools didn't have any East Asian languages. There was only, the other option was California, and I didn't know no one over there either. Just some family members who I've not even met yet. But so I start looking towards a school, and I start finding out that from kindergarten, or I mean elementary school, sorry, all the way through college, they teach Japanese, they teach Chinese, Korean. There's the opportunities for you to learn that, and there's also, there's you start off, all the community schools have it, and also the big schools. And I also find out that there was study abroad programs, and I found out specifically about the Freeman Scholarship, and how the Freeman Scholarship, if you're accepted to it, you get enlisted, or you're registered to take this intense courses over the summer, and then once you're done with the intense course, if you pass through that, you do good, your grades alright, you finish that, and they send you to the country, say to China if you're learning Chinese, or Korea if you're learning Korean, and the intense courses are based upon the language that you want to learn. And so they send you over there. First of all the intense course and all the books and the classes are paid for. All your trip to go to China is paid for. All your stay is paid for. They even give you tip allowance, and you spend a whole semester in that country. And once you're done with your semester in China, you get all these free tickets to go and travel abroad in that country if you like, or you can just sell them. So I started seeing that, and I was like, wow, this sounds like a super deal. And I was like, I have to take part in this. I have to take this opportunity. And so I registered for KCC, Kapiolani Community College, and then I registered. After 2 months, I check the mail. I'm checking the mail, and I get my acceptance letter there. I open it. I say, Mom, I've been accepted to school, Mom. I can go to school now. And she got all happy, and my brother also, and they couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And I got accepted to Kapiolani Community College. And I only did that because I wanted that as my plan B, to respect the sacrifices that my parents had made over the years. And also because to take the opportunity, because I've been living in the state for so long, and I haven't achieved anything. And that's one of the things why I am here, still in the United States, and I have not returned back to visit any relatives that I have over there in Peru. Therefore, I was like, okay, I have my plan B now. All I have now is gonna wait for my taxes, and then with my tax refund, I can get my ticket. And once I get my ticket, I can just go. So I started working, and my mother and brother saw the desire that I had within me. And the Christmas of 2010, I even got to talk to my father and explain to him the situation. And he told me that he understands I'm a man now, and this is the right time to do it if I'm gonna do anything. So he said, oh, it's okay, no worries, whatever decision you make, whether it is to migrate and stay in Asia, because my choices were, it was either I wanted to migrate to Asia and either learn the language and the culture by experiencing it, by being in that country and migrating there, immigrating there, or taking the school route, which was plan B, to learn the language and culture through the school, through the educational side. So that was my decision, and with that decision I wanted to decide either or, and I was headed to Asia to make my decision once I had experienced and seen Asian life and culture with my own eyes. My parents and folks, they saw my desire was strong, and they told me, we know, my mother said to me, we see that your desire is strong and that you really want to do this, and it's something that you have to do, and we acknowledge, that you're mature now and wanting to make such a decision for your life, and it's something for your future. And she said, well, we're gonna support you. We want you to come home, live with us. You don't worry about the bills or anything. We're gonna pay for everything. All you have to do is just save your money for your trip. So I started living with my family, my brother and mother, and my father. He has stayed in Ohio. After I moved to Florida, a year later, my mother arrives. So that's why this was around 2010. But so my father, he still stayed in Ohio because my younger brother had to finish high school, so he stayed over there. And he has his own house, which he's still until this day trying to sell. Once he sells it, he's gonna come to Florida to live, to my family be once again together. But so what I do is I stay with my family and I keep on working. Once my taxes come, I buy my ticket. Everything come out to be $1,800. My 20 days in Hong Kong, and by God's grace and mercy, just that year in 2010, I had met through Jonathan Hasking, a friend of mine from Pop Century, from Disney World where I used to work. He introduced me to Fino So. He introduced me to Samantha, Gloria, Annie, and just many other people from Hong Kong. And I knew my friend Shui Fan. She was already in Hong Kong. And so when the people that I met from Hong Kong, when they left, they invited me over just that same year that I was thinking of going. So by God's grace and mercy, I had met them just at the right time. So I told all my friends, I told them I'm gonna go, I'm headed over there already. I had reserved my hostel and my guest house over there in Hong Kong for 20 days, and 40 days I had reserved to go to South Korea, and I was gonna stay in the city of Suwon. In Hong Kong, I stayed in Tim Sat Sui, which is TST for short, in the Kowloon side. So I had all set. I bought my ticket. I still had my entertainment system. I had my surround sound system, my Dreamcast collection of games and accessories. The same thing with my Game Boy, with my collection of Pokemon games, and my Xbox, my two Xbox, original Xbox and the Xbox 360 with its accessories and games. And I sold all that just so I can have as pocket money for traveling inside, and to feed and whatnot, to eat and whatnot, for my trip. So I sold all my stuff. I sold my Dreamcast to my good friend Wayne Arnold. I sold my Xbox stuff to my good friend Jasmine, and that's about it. The other stuff I sold it through eBay. And so I sold all my things. Came June 1st, I was headed to go to Hong Kong, and I went to Hong Kong. I spent there a good 20 days there. I would go to the parks, I would go to the malls, I would sit down in the parks in the mornings and afternoons, and I would just analyze the Asian culture, just the treatment between young and old, the treatment between in family, the treatment between friends, treatment between strangers, just all these things. I started analyzing all the morals, all the values. I started to analyze all these things. I got to meet up with my friends. I got to reunite with them also. They gave me a tour like they promised. They opened their doors. They even picked me up from the airport, took me to my guest house. Thank you, Amanda and Gloria, by the way. And they, and all my brothers and sisters in Hong Kong, thank you so much for all that you did. May God truly bless you. And so they, they took me around, and Fan, thank you also, and everyone I got to meet in Hong Kong last year. And so 2011 June I was there, and from June 3rd to 23rd I was there, and I got to jot down everything, all positive and negative, of everything that I seen and experienced. I was super amazed at Hong Kong. I had a great experience. Though there some areas there is air pollution, and I even got diarrhea like on my third day, I think. But I had a good time. I ate really good food. So those I reunited with in Hong Kong. I also asked them the same question. There's one question which is expressed to them that I come here with the idea to migrate and to perhaps even live in Hong Kong, and what I really appreciate about their culture. And as I expressed to them this question, this desire of my heart of why I came to Hong Kong in the first place, or Asia in particular, they just told me, well, Otto, we appreciate you a lot, and we want to be honest to you. And also us, we work through our youth, and we go and work in different places. Even while we're in school, we go and work. And even if after we finish 4 years of school, we go out and work, but we realize that it's better that we stay in school or finish our studies, get a master's degree or a PhD, because of how much competition there is, and the money that we earn just with our associates or bachelors just not enough. So we also go back to school and finish and get a higher education. That's something that they expressed to me, and I told them I would just consider their thoughts and their opinion of all my brothers and sisters, or what they told me. After seeing the pressures that was in Asia, and especially in China, how there's the one-child policy, what I got to understand was that that child, because of the one-child policy, the parents help him out a lot, but they also, once they're done helping him and he's finished with his career, they're dependent on him for them to strive, to progress, or to have a better life in the future, because that one child has to take care of his parents, because they're the only siblings that can help him out. So that's why they put in the extra effort, not just to focus on that, but also the one child policy is the mentality that you have one child, you can express more love and more care towards one instead of having plenty. But so it brings a pressure in a young man or young woman to really excel in everything that they do. And so the whole stereotype of Asians just being super smart is, I finally got to understand that it wasn't true. But what it is that they have to push themselves, because there's no other option, because they have people that are gonna depend on them, whether it be their own parents or their own siblings, or it could be their family also in the future. So just having this in the back of their mind is what helps them, drives them to push even forward, and just the necessities in their life. The one thing that I got to do also there was, a lot of my immigrants in Hong Kong are from India, and I stopped one of them and asked him if I could interview him. And one of the guys that I interviewed, he gave me his time, and he told me just basically that they're able to live and make it there in Hong Kong, but they spend about in just a small room, and they fit about 6 to 8 people that live there, and they all live there together. They make just enough to go on day by day, but still it's not enough for them to save money or to live in comfort. So I told the guy, that I came to Asia because I wanted to immigrate, and I was just tired of America. When I told him that, he literally told me, "Are you crazy? We're all trying to go to America. What are you doing here?" And I expressed to him, just my feelings, what it was towards the moral values and the high social values, um, the high family values also. But they couldn't really understand. Some of them were younger than me, around their early 20s or 18s, that were coming to migrate and had left their families and wives in India to come immigrate. So I got to understand that, and the time came to leave, and I left on June 23rd, right when the monsoon season was about to hit, and it was kind of like tsunami warnings in Hong Kong. And I went on to South Korea. In South Korea, I also I landed there in June 23rd. Came there, and it was how to say, it was a great experience. I experienced my mistakes with getting a taxi. I got a little bit ripped off because I didn't know the levels of taxis that there is in Korea. There's a black, which is executive level, then there's a yellow, then there's a green, I believe, and then there's a white also. So depending on the colors of the taxi's vehicle, is depending on how much each are gonna charge you. And I didn't know that. When I got to the airport, this gentleman, he helped me out with my bags, and he told me he could take me to my hostel. So he took me, and he told me to take out 300,000 won, which is $300. And so I took it out of my bank account, and when I got there, he basically charged me about 200,000 won, and I had to pay it. I had no other choice. He already took me there right in front of my guest house, and the drive was, I think, around 40 minutes to an hour. It was storming, and I guess he took pretty much care of me. So I just paid for it because I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't call any of my friends, but it was an experience. Now I know when I go back to Korea that what taxis to take or whatnot. And also in Korea, I spent my birthday with my friends. I got to talk to them, and that same day, I expressed to them my desire that I had in my heart about migrating to Korea. All of them, they just told me, they all just finished school, but they also they emphasize on getting a master's degree or some type of higher education. So while being in Korea, I also I got to study and analyze the culture there. I learned also that through the history of Korea, that in 30 years they had developed so fast, and one of the key things was through education. Many of the old mothers and fathers, they push their kids to get a higher education, and just get educated in a way with extracurriculums and English academies, just so they can help themselves in the future. And through that, in 30 years, they were able to rise above poverty that they had in Korea, in South Korea at one point. So I stayed in the city of Suwon, and in Suwon, it's mostly Korean speakers. Most of the society is elderly, so they're like 40s and above. Not really super old, but just 50s or 40s and above. And everyone mostly speaks Korean. All the street signs are in Korean. All the bus signs are in Korean. The subway signs are mostly in Korean. And everyone just speaks Korean. The only English speakers are young people, but they're hard to find when it's not out of school hours. You might be able to run across them. But what I got to experience in Korea was that one time I was going to Seoul from Suwon City, and I was in the subway, right in the subway, and I see this girl just sitting there with her head down, her head between her legs, and just hanging down, her hair between her legs or whatnot, just sitting there. and she's looking very depressed, very oppressed as well. She seemed very troubled in her mind, almost with like a facial expression of suicidal thoughts. When I saw that, I wanted to say something, because I know if you say at least one word or you talk to someone, communicate, it can help, give them courage somewhere or another, expressing some experience that we each go through or something to some person can help them be encouraged and give them a little bit extra boost or push to keep going forward. If I could just say something like, there's a brighter day tomorrow. Everything you already went through is already in the past. Keep walking forward. Something small like that. I know it can give her some type of courage, but I couldn't say anything. I couldn't utter a word at all, and that affected me because I wasn't able to speak in their own language in Korean or communicate, and it showed me that really to talk to people. I mean, first of all, you need to know the language. If you don't speak the language, there's no way you can either help or express yourself at all. So I saw that, and it really urged me to. Also, when I would go and like buy a cell phone over there, I had to use Google. I had to buy survival, just survival phrases, Korean books that help me communicate, like saying "이가 얼마요," which is how much is this, or 안녕하세요 or 가세요, the differences, and just learn the money count and just the difference of value. And I went to a city called Ansang, and there is where a lot of migrative people from Southeast Asia come. And then being in Korea, I got to experience the foreigner, that foreigner treatment as a foreigner. A lot of people in Korea couldn't really tell where I was from. So because I'm brown skinned, they thought I was one of the other Southeast Asian people, and I was treated as a minority, somewhat in some ways discriminated, and some other people didn't really care or mind. Everyone just mind their own business. But what I did get to find out in Korea is that there's a lot of focus on beauty, and the level of beauty in South Korea is really way higher than any other society that I had met before, because over there, plastic surgery, it's abundant everywhere, and there's an ease of access to it, and it's also very cheap. And so in the society, there are things that it is acceptable a lot, and to get a job even as a young person, both men and women, they are encouraged, not even encouraged, they're required to get some Botox or some plastic surgery done in them, and to them look a certain way, a certain beauty, that they can be accepted into the workforce. If not, they won't even get hired. So it's not a matter of, that also, it's in there, men versus women or whatnot, but also goes an extra layer deeper. So when I saw that, I wanted to ask my friends, what was that really about, and how would they feel? How my friend expressed it, he just told me that this is something that they were taught and they grew up with in their society, and it's just they don't see it, either wrong or bad. It's just something they have to do. And also in that, through the socializing in Korea, if I am to become your friend and we want to make a closer bond in Korea, if I offer you a cigarette and you deny it, I will be very offended, because this is our sign of making like a covenant, or making like a bond. This cigarette symbolizes the bond between me and you. If you take this serious, that means you accept me as a close friend. But if you deny it, then that means you don't even want to, consider me as a friend at all. So I saw that and I was like, I don't know about that. And then the drinking aspect of it is also implemented. I have experienced all that and just kept it inside me. So before I went to Asia, I really wanted to go to mainland China, or like Beijing, or somewhere like Guilin, which is in Xi'an region in China, or Japan, to go to Kyoto or Tokyo or whatnot to go see. But because I needed a visa to go into those places, because I'm going with my passport and my Peruvian citizenship. So when you get a visa, you have to let the visa people know where you're gonna stay or who you're gonna stay with, and the people you will stay with, they have to let their city hall of their county know, get a permission basically for you, so you can stay with them. And so when you go over there and visit your friend or family, and you don't leave at the exact moment, the immigration will come to their house and they'll look for you. That will be the first spot they look for. And if you're not there, as you have stated in your visa that you will go, there's that family or whatnot, they'll get fined. So, $1,000 or more. So, because I knew that I didn't want to bother anyone I had met, and that's why I decided that I would travel only with my passport, and I was able to travel to Hong Kong, and then by God's grace and mercy, I had met people from Hong Kong, and to Korea, to South Korea, where I had met people from South Korea by God's grace and mercy also. That's why I decided to go to both places. And very well, I was, considering all the things and everything I had went through. And on July 10th, I made the decision, after seeing all that I had seen in Korea, after acknowledging and thinking, I literally just closed myself to my guest house for about 2 days to make a decision. So I thought about all the sacrifices my family had made. I thought about everything my friends, and consider everything they were telling me about school, and also just about how education helped Korea come out of poverty. Even considering what my family or kids would think living in Asia. Maybe they'll say, Dad, you're dumb. How America is great, is awesome. Why did you even come here and you make us grow up here? You should take us to America. And just, because I didn't care if I sacrificed my opportunities for education, if it meant that I could make it in Asia and give them a better lifestyle within the realms of having a higher values for social values and family morals. But so I had to consider all this stuff and all the things that kids would say, wife would say, or all my family think me, just disregarding all the opportunities I have, and just getting rid of all the sacrifices, basically just shutting everything down and just restarting from scratch, having nothing. Considering everything that I had been through and all that my friends said, and especially since some of them told me just to consider that if I go study, I can perhaps get a career in some way or another, because in Asia you cannot work if you don't have any type of bachelor's or associate's degree. You had to have some type of degree, because even people who work at McDonald's or gas stations, they have some type of bachelor's degree. Therefore, I decided I'll probably go and study and then come back with some type of degree, and either help out teaching English or Spanish, as my friends suggested, and not because of their suggestion, but also with the idea that I could come back, find a decent paying job, and also get to know the culture and the language as I am there. If I was able to, if I would, go on the route to study in school. So I considered it and I accepted that path. So I said, okay, I'm gonna study, and I'm gonna head to Hawaii. So around July 10, I made a decision, and I spent my rest of the time in South Korea, and I had a great time. I even went to a mud festival. I got to try out bow shooting. I got to ride a horse. I mean, just different various experiences. The one thing that I didn't expect, and is that happened on my last week of Korea. As I was sitting just in my room, I was just thinking of everything I went through, and God started showing me just how His grace and mercy have been over my life, you know, all through my trip there. Because before I left, I had this courage, but I also had this trust that nothing would happen to me. Because of my past experience in 2007 when I first gave my life to God, there in that moment, after seeing how God answered my prayer, when I surrendered my life to Him, He put peace in my heart, and also just how He made that change and took those scars away, and for me to have a better relationship with my own Father, and just other prayers that He answered. It gave me the courage, and it gave me the push to know, to be certain that nothing's gonna happen to me, because I knew people that love me, loved ones, and people that know me that were praying for me, that everything would be alright for me while I was overseas. And this gave me I was certain that nothing will happen to me, and gave me that courage and confidence and boldness to go wherever I needed to go, or walk through wherever I needed to walk, because I know there was someone praying for me, and I knew that prayer worked. That's what gave me that confidence when I left, and as I left, and as I was there. And so I started acknowledging how, because of that confidence, I was able to go through what I did. I was safe, I was secure, nothing happened to me. I didn't get badly sick, I didn't get kidnapped, I didn't get killed, I didn't get robbed. None of those bad things happened. And I knew that it wouldn't happen, because I trusted in those prayers. And also just started acknowledging that how my friends that I had met in Korea and the ones in Hong Kong, they were finishing with their career already. Some of them, the ones in South Korea especially, they were finished with their career. They were starting to work and going through training for their jobs, for their profession. One was training at Samsung, the other one at LG, other one at another company, and another one was working for a TV network. And they were just being blessed from I started to see just the sacrifices that they made. They were reaping the rewards. And I said, there's something here. And I started just to see and acknowledge how God started showing me how His grace and mercy had been over my hands ever since growing up and being in Ohio, living in New York, being in Florida, and how by His grace and mercy He allowed me to meet all these people in different times of my life that was able to come and experience all I had, and how He took care of me through all this time. And even though when I was growing up in Ohio, I turned my back to Him, I denied Him, and when He helped me, I would use Him at times to feel peace, and then I will go, and once I felt better, I would go and just go back to how I was living before, and how I had even backstabbed Him and turned my back against Him. But He was still there, and He was still there even at that moment as He was showing me all these things. And I just heard one question being asked to me. All God asked me was, what are you going to do now? Now that you know that my grace and mercy have been all over your life, and everything, what I did for you, what I've tried, how I've loved you all this time, I've cared for you. What are you going to do now? You made your decision to go and study, but what are you going to do now that you know? And my brothers and sisters, friends, family, loved ones, all I could do then is just kneel down by my bed there in my guest house and say, God, from this day forward, I will walk with you honestly and truthfully. and tell you everything that goes on in my heart and mind, and just let you know. And I will walk before you however you lead me. And I told him that I want you to change the things within me. I don't want to have the same experience I had before, where I failed because I tried to change things and they hurt. But I want you to change it within me. I want you to make that change in my life. Let you do the work. I don't want to do the work no more. And I told him just like that with those words. And my brothers and sisters, you that know me, from that day on forward, ever since I set foot here in Hawaii, it's been one blessing after another. When I came here, all I had was $500 in my pocket, and my first week of my hostel reserved here in Waikiki and Lemon Road. That's all I had when I came here. And in that hostel, I met different individuals from all over the world, just tourists as myself. But I met especially this one gentleman named David, and then this other gentleman named Gao Wen. We call him Mr. Wen. And him, well, I met those two guys, and they were in the same condition as me, and they were also wanting to find a place to live, always also looking for work. So during my last few days of staying in that guest house, I asked them if something told me in my heart just to ask them, and I know it was God, told me just to ask him that we can team up and perhaps find a house for all three of us, and that we can help one another. And therefore, we started looking through the internet and personally also through newspaper, looking for a place to live and also work. On my first day when I landed here, I went straight to school to try to find out about if all my paperwork for school. I went to KCC, to Kapolani Community College, to find out if all my paperwork were in order. And so I did that. When I got there, I also remembered that I should find out about work and study. Because when I was in Korea staying in the guest house, I met this gentleman who was from Pennsylvania, and he had told me that he had been studying already Chinese for 5 years, and he was able to take advantage of a lot of scholarships through his school in Pennsylvania. He applied through scholarships through the Chinese government, through the Korean government, and he was able to go for 2 years and stay in China through a scholarship, and everything was paid for him. He got a scholarship through school, and he was able to study in China for 2 years. When I met him in Korea, he was doing 6 months of studying Chinese in Korea, and then he was headed, after Korea, he was headed to Taiwan to study for 6 more months. And he told me all he did was apply through scholarships, and he also found out about something called AmeriCorps, and just that if I go to Hawaii, and when I do go to Hawaii, he says, to find out about work and study, and that it looks good on your resume, and that it would help you boost your opportunities to get these scholarships to go travel abroad, to study abroad. So I told him, okay, when I get to Hawaii, I'll look into that. So I did. That's why I went and asked about work and study. And when I went there, they told me just that I had to just look into my profile on the UH system and check if I was accepted or denied. Before I checked, on the 4th day after I landed in Hawaii on a Thursday, the first day that I came, I started looking for work and a place to live, obviously, after I had gone to school that day. And so as I looked for a place to stay, I found this place here in 3rd Avenue and Wildlife. And the lady basically told me, because I didn't have a job, but I had, I didn't have a job, that I needed to give her 3 months in advance to be able to stay there with her. I said, 3 months in advance? That's too much. That's about almost $2,100. I was like, no, I can't do that. So I knew I needed to find a job, because my worry was that my week was gonna be over, and I could at least pay each day I stayed, or each week I stayed in the hostel. I can pay, and I can go week by week and just live in the hostel, and then keep on working in a job until I can have enough to move to a bigger place. So out of my worries, I started looking for work, and I got to find, and I passed in Coco Head Avenue or Coco Head Boulevard in Wai'i. I found this restaurant. It's a Mexican restaurant. I thought there'd be, maybe Mexican people. I can talk to them in Spanish and maybe try to find a job there. So I went in there. There was no Mexican people, but I did talk to the gentleman there, and he told me to call the manager. So I applied there in person that same day, and the next day I called the manager. The manager told me, I've heard good words from the person you talked to about you, and just come on Friday, and just let's talk and let's see if we can hire you or not. So I talked to him, and he told me, all right, that's good. You seem like you have a good background experience. I told him just my work history in food and beverage, and customer service or whatnot. And there he told me, okay, come Friday, you're gonna start working. So by God's grace and mercy, I got the job. At the end of my first week being here in Hawaii, this gentleman, a Chinese gentleman, Mr. Wengao, he found a place, and he said to me and David, the other boy that was under the same situation, he told us, guys, I think I found a place for us. You gotta come and see it. So he invited us to go see it. We went to meet the landlord, and we met her, and she was super understanding of the situation. And we explained to her our situation, about that we only had about for 1 month's rent, and we didn't know how we were gonna pay the deposit. But if she would allow us, to maybe room together, that we can pay for the room. And the lady said, well, I don't really allow anyone to room together. There's only one room per person. But because of you guys are the first one here, and you live under this condition, and you have these conditions that you're starting out with, I'm gonna help you. And she says, I just want you guys to take care of the place and maintain it a little, and then you guys kind of repay me that way. But about the deposit, she even told us we could pay it in parts as the months came by. So we found a place here in Kanewai Street by Dole Street here in UH Manoa area. And so we were living there, and it was a house full of international people, about 7 nationalities, someone from Colombia, I was from Peru, 3 people from the United States, 2 people from China, 1 from Korea, and a guy from Japan. And we were just all there under the same roof. I had a wonderful experience. The landlord even brought us a bag of rice and some chicken that we can eat. She bought us our bed sheets. She gave us everything. She just furnished everything for us, and it was just a blessing to be there. I knew that was of God. She even told me that when she bought this house, this place, that she was asking God to be able to use it some way to help anyone that needs it. And I guess God put 1 and 1 together, and there I was. So then, after 3 weeks of working, I started seeing that I don't really like the environment and the atmosphere of struggling, and how some people that are there are still under that mentality where they don't want anything more but just a job to maintain themselves, and just to go through that day by day, and you know, who knows, something might show up or they'll get lucky and something might happen, but they don't have that push and that drive to achieve something better. They're just there in that position, even though especially the young kids, and they just want the money, that's all. So I saw that, and then you know, there's also other people in their different situations, and they have kids and have to provide, and they've already made their decisions in their life and from their youth, so they have to stick through it. But when I saw that, I said, God, I came here to want to achieve all that I could achieve, and to push myself and to my fullest potential, and do anything I can to achieve that the goal that I have in mind. And this place is not fitting for that. I don't see that in this place, and it's just, you know, I don't want to get dragged down with it. I want to shake myself from it and just push through any obstacle. So I told God, God, I know you provided, allow me to have this, so I can have a way out of my caring and my worrying of what I was going through at that moment, because I didn't know how I was going to make it, but I know you can provide me something better. So as I tell him that each day for 3 weeks, I just tell him that I said, Lord, here I go again. I really don't want to work here, but I know why you provided to me. But even though you provide this to me because of my worriness, I know you can provide me something better. So I just kept saying that after work, before work, and I just keep going. And after 3 weeks, you know, I remembered about the work and studying what the lady had told me, which is Miss Melissa Orozco. She had told me to check on the website. So I checked on the website, and by God's grace and mercy, the option was there. Work and study was offered to me. All I had to do is press accept or deny. That's all I had to do. And ever since then, I've been working in Palolo Valley. And in Palolo Valley, the children there are very precious to me. And I just been blessed day in, day out, you know, working in Palolo. One time, my coworker Steven, I was working there, and he had mentioned if we wanted any snacks to take home, and he mentioned that on the start of my shift, and I told him it's okay, why not? You know, he mentioned it, and I just told him I didn't pay much attention to it, but then when I leave home, he asked me if I wanted to take anything home. Now, mind you, Steven, I barely knew him, and he didn't know anything about my situation. That same exact week, I was in need. I didn't have money to buy groceries for that week, but you know, it was just a necessity. And when he tells me that, and you know, he even calls me he tells me, come to the fridge so you can pick what you want. He gives me about 4 bags full of groceries, cabbage, milk, cheese, crackers, cereal, and he gives it all to me. And I come home here, and I show the brothers, and I'm like, "Where you went shopping?" And I said, "No, God has blessed me today." After I left, well, when I was leaving with the bag, I said, "God, thank you very much." And my brothers and sisters, God has done things like this and many things in a way to manifest himself to me and to reveal himself in a way that has grounded me to his word and to himself in a way that I can no longer be shaken from it. No longer can I turn aside to the things that he did. And bit by bit, I've been able to as I learned to walk humbly and obedient to his word that he has taught me, he has not failed me, and nor I know that he will never fail me. He has always been faithful ever since I made that decision to reconcile my life in that last week of Korea unto him. And I have just been walking that way, trusting in him with all my heart and commending myself and everything to him. And he has done mighty works, and I have much to share, and I want to share. I just want to tell you guys, God bless you. If this way, the way that I've learned to believe in God, now I know there's a real God because He's made Himself real to me. I have been able to try Him and proven, and I see the reality of who He really is. And this has blessed my life in so many ways, but also I don't follow Him because of the blessing that He's put in my life, but because He has changed me from what I used to be. I used to be one thing, and now I am what I am. Everything you've seen of what you have met me, of what you have seen in me when you met me, this is not me, but this is Him in me doing these things that the world may see that He still exists. And I only share this with you because I love you, and I just want you to know how I am walking here in Hawaii today. And I know by the grace of God I'll keep walking with Him this way until the time that He returns to bring us back to Himself. My brothers and sisters, I just want to tell you, God bless you. Thank you so much for your time. And as I continue to walk and take courage and do the work that in His will, do His will, what He has for me, I just aim to walk humbly and obedient to His word. If you ever want to know more of any of my testimonies, because I have plenty to share, I just wanted to share this specific one because this is something that's been in my heart, that God has put it that I can share with you. I've only gone through what I've gone by His grace and mercy. This testimony has been put in my life. I didn't choose to go through it. I know He made the way, and He brought the people at the right time that I may go through all this, that you might be blessed from it, and that it may give you courage for you to keep pushing forward. This is not about me, but it's about Him. And now doing school and all this, I'm only be able to make it and finish it, I know, by His grace and mercy. And I also know whatever He starts, He will finish. My brothers and sisters, I want to just say that you should love one another and care for one for the other. I just want to tell you I love you. Take great care. If you ever see me, just remember, I'm only here because God has opened the door so widely, and that by His grace and mercy, I'm able to live each and every day. I hope to see you again in the future or in the next coming days. I hope this has been a blessing for you. I am very gracious and very appreciative that I've been able to share this with you. Thank you for your time. Take great care, and I'll see you around. Mahalo. 再见. Annyeong. Sayonara. Until next time, everyone. Thank you so much for all your time and your friendship and your love and your brothership. I really miss you. And until we see each other again, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I greet you all. Shalom.